Welcome to Inside Richmond, the official vodcast of Richmond Rugby Club. My name is Tom Soulsby, and this week we're joined by former Richmond captain and a man with 185 first 15 caps under his belt, Mr. Will Warden. Wards.
Yeah. Hello, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the show. How's things been these past few months for you?
Months, yeah, right. Okay, it looks like it'll be a couple of weeks, but no. Yeah, it's been all right, to be fair. Sort of been able to work from home as well. Me and the partner work from home, and we haven't sort of killed each other yet. It seems to be going all right. Yeah, no, it's difficult. You miss sort of seeing your mates, seeing your family, especially. But I think that now that they're easing some of the lockdown measures a little bit, it's nice to be able to get out, and mentally it helps massively to be able to start to get out and start to plan and look forward to things, and the social calendar starts to pick up a little bit here and there, which, yeah, it's just all adds to the buzz. But apart from that, mate, all's been good. And yourself, all right?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Wards. Busy working away, keeping things ticking over. But I think we're obviously all looking forward to getting back to Richmond at some point. We'll move on and we'll speak about your career shortly, and also get some questions in from our members and social media followers. To be honest, it's the most we've got so far, so you should feel privileged.
Happy days, yeah.
But I guess firstly, just for those who don't know, what do you do for a day job, and what does it involve?
So I work as a insurance underwriter, which is normally a bit of a conversation killer, so I won't go into too much detail. But no, I work in the Lloyd's of London market, and a few of the boys work up in there. It has been, before lockdown at least, a nice sociable market with face-to-face dealings and meeting clients, meeting brokers and all sorts, assessing risk, transferring risk, and looking at different vehicles for doing so. But yeah, it's treated me well. I think when I joined Richmond, I managed to get the job in insurance straight away. It wasn't a job that I necessarily planned for at uni and going into as a career-wise, but it's treated me well, looked after me, and it's given me all sorts of brilliant opportunities, both career-wise, professionally, and also on the rugby side of things, which has been great.
You spoke about rugby there. Do you, I guess, have you always enjoyed your sort of work and rugby balance? In other words, has the Richmond model been perfect for you?
Well, yeah, bluntly. Why has it been perfect? Well, it has to work sort of two ways. So Richmond, for one, are fantastic, and Steve and the other coaches have been brilliant at understanding, it's not your day job. It is still a hobby, albeit a very serious professional sort of hobby. But it is still a hobby at the end of the day. So your priority is with your job and your career, and they afford you time in order to be able to do that. Now, as we sort of progressed, I think I joined in, we were in National 2 North, but as we sort of progressed and we were up in the Championship, the stresses and time constraints around the Championship became more increased, and so they demand a little bit more of you. But with a group of mates, as our culture of the club is, knock on the door. Sorry, as the culture of our club is. Yeah. That right? She's getting the door. Yeah, the culture of the way. Sorry, mate. This is what happened. You see, yeah. You just work at home. You just realise how many passports she orders. But
mate, I'm the same. I live with my girlfriend Emma, and safe to say we've been getting a lot of Amazon parcels the last.
Yeah. Yeah, no wonder, right? Absolutely. But no, the way the culture of the club is, when one person decides to stick it in, everybody else sticks it in and adds a little bit more. But yeah, what I was saying, the flip side of that is you need to. I've been blessed and really fortunate that my boss and my career and my job, they've been, so supportive of it all, and brilliantly with that, they sort of allow me the time to train in the mornings if I have to train. I mean, outside of work hours, they allow me sort of, if I'm feeling a bit sore on a Monday morning, they might give me a little bit of a longer leash, etc. So, they're great. And yeah, okay, city jobs can demand quite working quite late into the evenings, but as long as they've been great. They just said, as long as you're getting your work done, then you're fine to leave on time, get down to training, so I can put my hours in at that side as well.
Absolutely. It's obviously, it does have its challenges, but I guess as rugby is sort of changing in the championship next season with the funding and so forth, many clubs will follow this Richmond model. Do you think what we have is the envy of a lot of the other clubs?
I think as a player, it depends exactly what you're looking for. If you're on the championship and you want to play full time and you want to try and push on to, bigger and better things, Premiership rugby, etc., moving on, then you need to be in a full time environment in order to be able to do that. Whereas if you just want to be a semi-pro but play to the extreme very best of your ability, then I think Richmond could be the best place to be. Now, there's other clubs that are similar in our model, and other clubs that are starting to move towards our model. And it's not exactly. I don't think we haven't sort of broken new wave of science in order to come up with the model we have. And actually, we've learned from the sins of our own past and how we do it. But what we have managed to do is build a great culture around what we've got in order to be as successful as we possibly can. And I think that then, as a player at Richmond, you sort of realise that everything around you is geared towards the players, so that put you in an environment where you really can succeed. Whether it's socialising off the field, whether it's your medical provisions, whether it's your strength and conditioning provisions, and a shout out to I always say it wrong, I think it's Arite guys, but obviously Ian Tapton, Tom Farrow and the boys who, I don't think you wouldn't get any better than that. And that's Premiership standard strength and conditioning, definitely. So and obviously the coaching that goes around with it, with Steve, Rob Powell, Matsy Kenchi and the team. I think as a player, you realise that actually you've got such a special environment where you are that you can do both, and you can play to the highest possible level as a semi-pro athlete, but still continue your career at the same time.
Very good answer.
Is that right?
That's perfect. Right. You summarised that perfectly, Ward. So
I had to deal with a quick work call from my boss at the same time. But.
Let's wind the clock back now to, I guess, the start of your sporting career. Now, I read that you played football until you were 16. Is this correct? What sort of football player were you, and why did you then decide to switch to rugby?
I was it is correct. I was a goalkeeper, lazy, bit of a pansy. Now my old man was a footballer. Hockey first, but more football. And then he one of his mates was coaching a local football team, so he decided to get me involved. And so I just played football. He used to drag me down Forest Green Rovers most Saturday afternoons and stand on the terrace and watch the boys play on the lawn. And then I'd play football on Sunday through till I was about 16. And then actually, the change was when I moved school. Mm-hmm. So the school I was at beforehand was a football school. First and foremost, I moved school to another school, Marling in Stroud. And then a lot of the boys there were rugby players. Rugby was seen to be a bigger sport for one. I don't really know why, but it was just a bigger sport. All the boys played it. By which point at 16, I was around 15, 16 stone and needed to shed a few pounds because I was a goalkeeper. I think my dad still reminds me to this day that he tried to make me go and do some fitness, and I just told him I was a goalkeeper and I didn't need to run. So, he looks at me now and thinks, what the hell happened to you? So, in 16, I sort of then tried to do a season or two sort of pleasing my dad, but also hanging out with my new mates. So I'd play a game of rugby in the morning and go play football in the afternoon. And that wasn't going to last. And by then, my attributes as a goalkeeper were starting to change because I was playing rugby. So I was getting possibly a little bit more interested in the one-on-one physical sort of potential side of it as a goalkeeper. So, come flying out the net, not really interested in the ball. But yeah. It was a good time.
You then, I see you then took a gap year to New Zealand to play your rugby, playing with a few All Blacks there. What was that experience like?
That was just immense, really. But not just rugby side, but just life, really. Because I was a village boy, sort of growing up in Gloucestershire and the sort of, the heart of the country, as I call it, and not really exposed to that much of sort of the real world, I'd say, because you're quite sheltered when you're living in a village with 4 churches to the 1 pub kind of thing, and a working man's club kind of, well, you can imagine the situation. But so three of us packed off to New Zealand, just followed a mate that had done it who was a couple of years older, just emailed the club, went out there, started apple picking, and then playing rugby started out with the Colts team, and then the 2 of us started playing for the Premiers team, and there was a couple of quite big senior sort of married, and I think there was definitely a couple of New Zealand Sevens boys there. But the way the sort of New Zealand system works is that they sort of start at a level and then they move up the way it is. I lose a bit track now these days, but on the rugby side, it just opened your eyes up massively. Because to be fair, I'd only been playing properly for 3-4 years, and then to go over there and you're thinking these guys are serious when you're seeing kids that are 7-8 years old running around barefoot, virtually on a full-size pitch playing full contact. You're thinking I wasn't doing that at 8 years old, Lord no. And then just in terms of life and generally, it just opened you up to a completely different culture, different way of life, different way of living, and it was just brilliant. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I look back on that, real fond memories. I mean, there was some good times, but we'll leave that. Family show.
Well, we'll talk about that later. And then you obviously you moved back to the UK after your year in New Zealand, and you went to uni at Loughborough, captain the rugby team there. What was that period of your life like?
That was a tough period, because I found my course particularly hard at the time when I was studying, but that was great in order to get through doing the course and finishing that, and then doing the rugby as well. I'd say on the side, it wasn't really on the side, it was pretty much front and centre really, and it was until sort of 3/4 of the way through second year, and you're like, I need to wake up, sort of thing, and then you really put your foot down on your academics a bit more. But I absolutely loved Loughborough, made friends for life there, as I think all the boys that were there do. There's a lot of, as I said, stories which again are better for a non-family show, but the rugby side there, the environment is exceptional, and I made good friends with the head coach, Dave Morris, and a lot of the other coaches there and I think throughout your rugby career, when you look back, you remember the coaches that have coached you. Mm-hmm. And you realise that you do take something away. You generally take something away, not whether it's a negative or a positive, but you generally take something away from each coach that's worked with you. So at Loughborough, it was Tosh Askew, Nick Scott, Dave Morris, and then James Farndon was obviously there. Jim Henry, who's a good friend and a good coach, very good coach as well. So, but I became good friends with Dave Morris throughout my time there, because I worked quite closely with him as captain. And we had some hair pulling out moments when there were sort of disciplinaries from the students' union that we wanted to get involved with the rugby club, and then he was trying to lean on me to find out what was going on, and I was you kind of get caught in a conflict there. But it's brilliant. Yeah, I absolutely loved it there, and it was great. And then we had the booster final, or now Bucks, I guess you call it now, at Twickenham, which was just immense. And you look at some of the players that we had in our team, some really high quality standard, brilliant players who have gone on to do some fantastic things. And it was just such a great laugh the whole time. You're training, pushing each other. You're growing as an adult, really, physically interesting.
Sounds like a fantastic experience. Obviously, after Loughborough, you then joined our club. Can you speak about your move to Richmond and what caused that?
So what caused it was we had a pre-training for before a Loughborough game at Richmond, and I remember it clearly. It must have Peter Moore did the presentation to the whole squad, all the Loughborough boys, and about Richmond as a club and avenues for when you finish at university, and they can help with the careers bureau and, you know, trying to help set you up in London, etc., and get you moving forward. And that really appealed to me. I liked what you said, etc. I think I still do like most of the things he says, except for when he tries to say we're only allowed 10 jugs of beer, but we normally get through that.
Yeah.
But that really appealed to me. I think I then had another year to go at university. Stayed on to do a master's, and then afterwards I sort of made contact, came down, and I just happened to be in London, I think, at the time, trying to interview for a job, I think it was. And they invited me to the Barbarians game to celebrate in the 150th year.
Yeah.
And I sat on a table for the lunch with Mike Hobbs, who, yeah, he was a good mate now. And Mike Hobbs sold me the club massively. He sort of told me everything about the club, and he's a passionate Richmond rugby man and Richmond man in general, having been a resident here. And he's actually been my sponsor ever since, which has been great. Me and a few of the boys, Ali Lyon, Craig Trenier. So, yeah, got a good relationship with Mike off the back of that. But it just sold it to me. So I just thought, I like the club. You get a great feel when you come to the club. They're welcoming. They accept you, warts and all. And they'll try and help you. There's enough people there that try and help you, that try and push you in the right directions. And then, you know, if you stutter, if you fall a bit, they'll help pick you back up. You know, they implore some people's weirdness if they're eccentric. You know, we had a few characters. We definitely have a few characters. And they enjoy it. You know, you can express yourself and be you at Richmond, which is, I think, what I absolutely loved, and one of the reasons I sort of joined the club.
You're obviously still heavily involved with the club now, but let's wind back to the time that you were named Richmond captain. Can you speak about what that meant to you?
Yeah, it's a huge honour to be captain of a club with that much history. And I think you need to do it justice. You have to understand a little bit of the history. You have to spend time talking to some of the old boys, the other Kadoos, and just finding out their experiences of the club. You know, and by doing that as a captain, I think you can then leave it in a better place than when you found it, definitely. And that's kind of the end goal of, you know, you pick up a shirt and you want to leave the shirt in a better position when you found it. And I think being made captain was a huge honour. I still think it was possibly a year too early, which was quite funny because it came off the bat. I'd done one season at the club, I remember it, because Tom George was captain at the time. Great bloke. And it was interesting my first year there, because Tom George hadn't actually played particularly well for large chunks of the season. And so it wasn't, you know, controversially, Steve Hill, because Steve Hill's got a job to do, wasn't picking him. And everyone was a bit up in arms about it because it wasn't the politically correct thing to do. You should still select him. But Steve was like, if he's not playing well, and he dressed all the boys that he was not playing well, I'm not going to select him. So because of that, Georgie's position was under a bit of threat. He then approached me and asked me to be captain the next year. And I was like, right. Because on the back of that, we just got promoted into National 1. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of new things going on. And I'd never played National 1 before, but, you know, you're massively up for the challenge. You then come back in National 1 the next season. Best player on the pitch for the first half of the season, at least, was Tom George. So, you know, first day of the team sheet, you couldn't drop him. Little bugger. And at the time, I was thinking, right, you know, you want to stamp your own authority and make your own mark as a captain and do all that, but you got the ex-captain there playing out of his skin. And then you have a chat with him. He took me for a drink out. You know, once Steve had spoken to him and me and said, look, I'm going to play the best of my ability. I'm just going to be there to support you 100%, no matter what. And that was huge. Having his backing and support from day one was huge, because it meant that, you know, I knew that he had the ear of all his generation of his boys, and there was a lot of younger lads coming through. A lot of the boys from Loughborough were coming through as well, who I was sort of friends with. And so having his support, you've got then your leaders within the team, and he was massively helpful to me. So I digressed a bit there.
That's a fantastic. No, that's a fantastic story, Wards. I guess on your leadership, and you obviously learned a lot from him. But how would you describe the way you went about being the captain and the leader of the club?
How would I go about doing it? I recognised that. So there's different ways of doing captaincy, right? And first and foremost, I think at a place like Richmond, you need to recognise that there's a role for a club captain, a role for a first 15 captain. And what, by Georgia being almost dropped the year before, made me realise just because you're club captain doesn't mean you're going to get picked every week. So from that basis, first and foremost, I had to make sure I was getting picked every week. And I still remember in my first year, sort of nearly forgiven Steve Hill for dropping me in my fourth game against Hertford. But I got that phone call saying we're arresting you this week. But so first and foremost, as that classic on a Wednesday morning. Yeah. First and foremost, it was to be playing as well as I possibly could, so that I was going to be first name on the team sheet, not because I was captain, but because I was playing well. And then after that, yes, vocals you pick up as you go, and I learnt a bit of that from, I guess, when I first was made the captain back at Worcester Wanderers Colts back in the day, and then enhanced those skills a little bit more at Loughborough. Still need a lot of work, to be fair, but they've improved a little bit. Full Pint always used to rate my speeches out of 10 pre-match, and all memories. Always with some constructive criticism, but I think the other side of it then is once that the playing aspect of being a captain was there or thereabouts, and you could find your own form on the pitch, but it was then addressing what you needed to do as for the club, and that was engaging with everyone, and that was engaging. And you don't have to be the one that necessarily is engaging. You can't be everywhere all the time, but you can, which is, I think, is arguably one of my strengths is to facilitate. So to try and generate situations where everyone can engage with everyone, and that inevitably leads to socials, but it also leads to training. And I think Steve helped a lot with setting up the after-match food, which a lot of the boys go to, and then you see people after training eating, talking, no matter what team they are in the club. Touring is a huge part of Richmond, always will be. Making that accessible to everyone is a big part, and I think that was kind of the other side of the captaincy at Richmond, which was possibly the harder work, if I'm honest with you. There was some testing times, some funny times. Yeah, I think the funniest time was sitting through a disciplinary for Cowden Pike, which, if you know him as a character, and how he clashed heads with Steve Hill a few times. That was one of the most genius and funny things I think I've ever been to in my life, and one of my proudest achievements that we managed to get him through it. But yeah, no, I sort of approached it on trying to address both sides really. So on the on-pitch stuff, but you can deal with that by you have your leaders within the team and the people you can call on, and then the club stuff, and of which then I sort of got friends with a group of lads who I knew were very sociable characters, should I say, and you can probably name them yourself, Tom. You know most of them, but
yeah, of course,
there's a reason that Timmy holds a lot of socials, and that's because he's probably the most social man going, and James Platt and his annual beer pong competition, and all these sort of people that are just great for the club. So I was pretty lucky, let's be fair. Pretty lucky with the characters you got around you.
Moving on now to the moment that you had to then pass over your captaincy, and it sort of links up well with the previous question and answer. How proud are you of the way that Cam Mitchell has stepped up since you sort of moved on, and have you supported him in the role?
I think, how have I, or have I?
Both.
I'm pretty sure I have. I hope he thinks I have. Cam is I've got a lot of admiration for Cam, and I think he is a great captain for Richmond, particularly in any time, but particularly in this time, because he's got such an abundance of energy that he can, and he's highly intelligent, so he can just cut straight through things when he needs to. He can be ridiculous in a social situation, and chaotic. Some people, the nickname Captain Chaos does spring to mind sometimes. But then at the same time, can be absolutely brilliant. He's so inclusive of everyone that I think he does a magnificent job. And then on the field, when we got promoted from Nat 1 to the Championship in 2016, I think it was, which was a hell of an achievement for our squad, right? But as a captain, the squad had been building for 4 or 5 years, right? So we had the same faces that have been playing together week in, week out, doing the same things, enjoying the same bus journeys, and we were such a tight unit that it was huge. And then Cam takes over as captain. We unfortunately got relegated from the Championship, which was going to be a tough season anyway. We knew that. You then have a bit of another changing of the guard. You've got a lot of new players come in. So, in my opinion, for Cam to lead the boys, and he'll never take credit as an individual because it's a collective, and it's the guys he's got around him in, the Jake Parkers and dare I say Rob Kirby's, etc., Ronnie McLean, and the boys. But to get a group of lads with a lot of new faces in and to tie them in to the same culture, the same direction, the same goal that quickly, and then bounce straight back up. I think that to me is a remarkable achievement, and I think that he deserves a lot of credit for that. A lot of credit for that. Hopefully, I've supported him. Hopefully, I tried. I dusted the old boots off for Chinner away, but I was just have to tussle with Selway again.
Just one final one before we move on to the questions from the outer. Obviously, you spent 3 seasons with the club in the Championship. You led the club for 2 seasons while we were there. Do you think we're in a better position now for the next challenge than having just gained promotion back to the Championship?
Yeah, I'd say so, because when you went up the first time, there was a lot of unknowns, and I think there's less unknowns in terms of what we're going into playing wise. So that first season we went up, we didn't really know what to expect. We thought it was going to be a case of mass and size and physicality, and we got there and the speed was twice as quick as we were used to. So all of a sudden that hypertrophy and weight that we've been trying to put on in the pre-season, we're like, quick, shed. And you just try and get up with the speed of the game. So there's less unknowns in terms of, I think, the style and the way the game's played in the Champ. But current situation, there's a lot of unknowns in terms of what rugby is going to look like going forward. And I think that's a conversation that's, we could sit for another 2 hours thinking what's it going to look like going forward. But, the club, financially, we're still prudent. We still have our reserves in place, which we owe a lot of credit to Peter and the Knights and the team that put those provisions in place. And a lot of thanks, not credit, but a lot of thanks to those guys for getting the club in that sort of position. I think in general, I'd say yes, we are. As a club, we definitely are. I think as a league, there's a lot of unknown in the Championship. A lot of unknown in the Championship. I've got a few opinions on that, but
we'll leave those for another time.
You don't really.
We'll get you back on at another time, Wards, to chat about those. But yes, it's an exciting challenge. Let's move on quickly now to some more excitement. It's the questions from our members and our social media followers. And as I said at the top, we've received the most we have so far. So let's go through them. The first one is from Robert Thomas. and he asks you, what was the experience like playing for the Penguins in the Hong Kong Tens?
Bobby T. Bobby, if you're listening, very different to the Lloyds playing in the Hong Kong Tens. It was it was a magnificent experience playing in the Hong Kong Tens for the Penguins. The caliber of player that we had in the team was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There was a lot of internationals in there, and I was a bit, felt a bit out of depth at points, but then you sort of start playing and you run around, you think it's all right, and you're not actually as far out of depth as your mind sort of tricks you to think that you are. But yeah, it was a brilliant experience. I mean, the Hong Kong Tens and Sevens week is one of the best weeks you can have, and if you can play in one of the tournaments, then all the better. But the Lloyds trip we did to the Hong Kong Tens was pretty special. Yeah, obviously you can't go through anything that happened on either of them because of tour rules, but
absolutely,
yeah. But no, it was a hell of an experience.
Very good. Next question here from Colin Wheeler. Colin, thank you for your question. He asked you, what was your most memorable or significant game during the 3 seasons in the championship?
Oh, in the championship?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, we had some big games. Because the obvious ones to think about are London Scottish at home, first win. For me personally, and I was a bit of a weird player. I like the horrible rank away trips that nobody really wants to go on, where you can actually, those are the sort of games I can have more of an impact on. And so if I think of those games, I think probably one of the biggest games was Cornish Pirates away when we won, which was in first season, I believe it was. I think that was a huge thing. That sort of, to me, marked us as a championship side. If you can go away from home and win, particularly to a place like that, which has got a shed load of history with it and is a tough place to go on a Sunday. But I think for me, probably the biggest game, the most memorable, was Doncaster away in 2018, which for 2 reasons. One, you would have to be there to see what the weather was like. I mean, we warmed up and it was glorious sunshine. We went outside, it was sheet rain, it then went sheet snow, the pitch went white, and then by the middle of the second half, it was glorious sunshine again, right?
Yeah.
And then the other reason that was memorable to me was that was the first time. That's the first game that we played against Doncaster, and that was shortly after the tragic passing of Ian Williams. So we actually came out on top that day in what was, as you always get with Doncaster, a physical, attritional, hard-fought game. But there was a lot of emotion that day from both sides. Obviously, because that was the way he played, and obviously with his family, with Richmond and the association that we had. So that to me was pretty special day. And you could feel it right the way through. And you sat with some of their boys. I remember sat with Matt Challoner afterwards having a beer. He's a great bloke, and awful to play against. But yeah, that was a memorable one.
Next question here from Paul Nash. He asked you, what are your memories of the Battle of Hertford?
Battle of Hertford? He should know. He started it, the little toe rag. Classic scrum half. Starting the fight. Yeah. That was first year at Richmond, the Battle of Hertford. Yeah. January 2012. Oh, yeah, that was a day, mate. No, so he went courageously into a breakdown for the first time in his life as a scrum half.
Yeah.
Gets some flailing boot accidentally tap him on the head. Next thing you know, I think we had Carl Sinclair at the time. I think he's then flown in at, I don't know what angle, but it was not legal. Taken somebody out. He jumped on somebody. One of their players piled on. Next thing you know, pretty much everyone from both teams, except for the fullbacks, because they don't ever get involved, had just jumped on top of each other, and there was just bodies laid out everywhere. And Paul Nash, who was probably up on his feet with no blood anywhere, was getting medical attention. But yeah, hell of a day. Good fight. Great scrap. Great scrap.
Yeah, that sounds wicked.
Battle at Hartford,
Yeah.
2018. We lost some players and some souls that day. Lost some players and some souls. But good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Next question from Matt Brown. So Brownie, thanks for your question once again. He asked you if you could tour a certain destination, where would it be?
Bluntly, I'd take any tour at the minute.
I think we all would. Yeah.
I think we'd take any tour at the minute. I don't know where I'd go at the minute. Anywhere. I love the stories from the old boys of their Canada trip. I think Canada would be huge. So I'd probably go there. I always want to go to Canada anyway, but yeah, you look at their tour and they still have their reunion lunch from their Canadian tour. Yeah. Just can't go any more into it, mate. Still.
Yeah, tour's tour. Another one here. This is from a unnamed person, but maybe a Richmond coach. He asked you, what was your favourite Richmond forward pack?
Oh. So I've got to choose it.
Well, you could go into that detail. It's up to you. You could.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's huge. That's from a coach as well. That's difficult, man, because every pack has its own personality. Yeah. Doesn't it?
It's a huge question.
It's a huge question, because you've got. I love my front row boys, and you're going to annoy with some of them. But if you had a front row, I couldn't. Yeah. So I'd always, if you asked me to pick a team, I'd probably pick on who I'd have on the bus on the way home. Mm-hmm. So, that means Timmy, unfortunately, is going to have to be your loose head. Your tight head there is probably going to be, well, if you want to fight, Ali Lyon will be thrown in, but Harky, but Trendy if you want to go into the spice zone. So, that's a huge question. I think one of my favourite, 4 Pint is my boy. I'd have in the engine room with me, obviously. Although he would happily step out the engine room if he saw Carl Alton making a return. And then if you wanted to go number 8, I think probably one of the best players I think I've ever played with, JP Attlee, hands down. Mm-hmm. He used to scare me senseless, just because he was so nonchalant about everything, but would just tear people apart. And then 6s and 7s. Well, I don't think you can look past Allsy as your 7, mm-hmm. Just because of how ferocious he is, and I just can't wait to see him and Cam play again together, because it's just brilliant. But then I think as of late, I'd have loved to play more games with Toby Saso on the form he's in at the minute.
Yeah.
Because you watch him last season, he's a man possessed, really.
Yeah, he's a bulldog.
Oh, huge, yeah. And then you've got plethora of 6s to try and choose from. You go for the sort of modern days of Jesse and Jake Parkers, who can do a good role there. Or would you bring back someone like Dougie Abbott from the past? Who'd be man of the match one week and then Steve the Chopper in the next somehow. But that's Steve Hill for you.
Okay, next question here from Jamie Gibbs. So Gibbo, thank you for your question. He asked you, is it true you got offered a professional contract at Gloucester every single year?
I just said I loved him. I don't. Right? I only like him now that he's retired and he won't label as a scrum half anymore. Right?
Yeah.
No, it's not true. There was some pansy article in the Gloucester Echo many moons ago, which I kicked off about. I remember I kicked off about and emailed them for libel and slander back in the day. I have no idea. So no, Gibbo, your little toe rag scrum half that you are, that I do respect a lot for looking after both Sam Stew and then Luke Jones for collective 6 years.
Yeah. Great question, Gibbo. He's answered it, and he says a big fat no. Next one here from Craig Trenier. He asked you, should I adapt the same knee and elbow technique for maximum speed?
So I think what he's referring to is my running style of same knee and elbow on the same side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to refer to. I think it's a technique that if you spoke to Ian Taplin, he'd probably advise against it. But you have to know your own body type, Craig. For you, something with a low centre of mass that is going to be comfort fitting and probably generally quite slow anyway is going to be more your style. But I'm not an S&C coach, so yeah, you just bend over and push, Craig, and get on with it. Crying out loud.
Well, it sounds like a good style there, Wards, and it obviously.
Hey, it works for me, mate.
It works
for me. I may get there slowly, but I generally will just about get there.
Yep, it works. Okay, to finish off, we've got a couple of questions here from Timmy Warford. So thank you very much for your questions. He asked you firstly, some describe Ian Kench as your nemesis. What would you say to them?
Ian Kench, I had a lot of good tussles playing against Ian Kench. A lot of good tussles, but he had to move out to the back row, I think, to try and get away from me when he was playing at Esher. I wouldn't know if he could actually call him my nemesis, but I've always been good mates with Kenchi. A lot of respect for him as a coach, working alongside him last season. He knows the stuff, and his analysis is absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I'll have a go with Kenchi. Of course, you have a go with Kenchi. Or chocolate shoulders, definitely.
Sounds like a good battle, that one, for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess just one final one. Timmy asked you, are you looking forward to the championship awards?
Well, you got me earlier by saying I got 185 caps, mate. So you just don't know, do you? You just don't know. So there's a lot of uncertainty. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how the guys get on in that league. It was going to be tough, but you make some awesome memories in it. And yeah, when we were in it last time, the wins were so precious that you really do celebrate them when they come properly. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing the club back up there. Definitely looking forward to seeing the club back up there. I don't know what form rugby's going to take, but I think everybody's going to need a dose of a bit of good rugby when it's back on. And I think it's going to be come on with a bit of force.
Yeah, I would agree.
Timmy, every time. Timmy.
Cheers, mate. Well, Ward, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, we will see you back at Richmond whenever that is, whatever role you might have with us going forward, but we can't wait to catch up. So thank you, mate. Thanks,
Tommy, mate. Cheers for that.
Everyone, this has been another episode of Inside Richmond, the official vodcast of Richmond Rugby Club. And join us next week for another episode.